Hello and welcome. We have a wonderful roundtable discussion today. So be vocal in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. We've got a mix of players, developers, consultants from the gaming industry, and we're going to be chatting with them, asking some of the most important questions and some fun ones too about what the future of blind gaming looks like. So first off, we have some developers and gamers from the Games for Blind Gamers Discord group. They just finished their 4th annual game jam, where they had 35 different games developed in under a month that are completely blind accessible. You can play most of them for free online. They are linked, as well as the Discord channel is also linked if you're interested in joining that. We also have Noah from EasySurf, who is a colleague of mine. We are an accessibility consultancy, and we consult to game development companies where we help them make games more accessible from a variety of perspectives. And we have some blind gamers as well. So I'd like to start with some introductions. If we could go around and maybe I'll have you go first. Just your name and your role in gaming, whether you're a gamer, a developer, a consultant, or a combination of the above, and the most recent game you played or developed. So take it away, Noah.
Well, my name is Noah. As Tamara mentioned, I'm a colleague of hers in one of her many business ventures with EasySurf. So I'd be a consultant, and we work with game studios to connect them with people with disabilities and help them make games that are more accessible to people with disabilities. The most recent game I actually just played was this morning. It's a word game called Wordatro. And what was fun about that one is, so I'm someone with chronic pain. It affects my hands, and I have a lot of trouble using keyboard, controller, mouse. And that game was actually quite easy to play with voice because it accepts keyboard commands that can be executed with voice. So I've been playing around with that one. I think that's everything.
Awesome. And maybe next we'll have Shift Back Tick, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Sure thing. Hi, Tamara. Thanks for having us. I'm Shift Backtick. I use they, them pronouns. I'm sighted. I'm in my home office right now. Behind me, there's a pink wall and an electronic drum kit. I'm a computer musician and web developer, and I explore how accessibility intersects with that. I'm also the developer of Lycus Opportunists for the Jam, as well as Periphery Synthetic, and I'm happy to be here. It's really good to see you all.
Thanks for coming. We're delighted to have you. Asaf, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Asaf. I'm the developer of Barista. I started making games half a year from now. I'm a programmer, but I never made games before. And I'm really excited to be here.
Wonderful.
Oh, and the last game I've played was Hollow Knight.
Brilliant.
Love it. Yeah.
And Super Freak, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey there. I'm Super Freak. I use he or they. Both are fine. And I'm a blind gamer. I've been playing mostly audio games, but a few mainstream titles since, 20 years ago, started then. And I joined the jam mostly to do a little bit of amateur consulting and sound design. I didn't do as much this year as I have in previous years, but it was still a great time. The most recent game I've played was probably Bones of Rosalinda. It's by this developer called Agat, A-G-A-T, on itch, and they make some really great games with the Twine system that are very accessible.
Brilliant. I'm sure lots of folks are going to want to check those out. Maybe we'll start the discussion. It's just super friendly. You can feel free to jump in if you have something to say. I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to chat if they want to. But we'll start with some kind of developer-centered questions. What got you into accessible game development or game development in general? So whoever would like to speak, go for it.
Yeah, I can start. So as I said, I started like 6 months ago, and I went full on. I took every game jam that I could find that looked interesting, and this one was my fifth
wow.
game jam. and I was really excited. Like once I saw it on itch, I was like, I have to take this challenge. It sounds really really interesting, and I love sound in games, and I figured that the sound is gonna be a major feature in an accessible game. Um, and then I discovered the like this world of accessibility and the community here. I was really amazed by it.
Oh, it's tons of fun. Sound is one of the most important things for me in games, so I had a lot of fun listening to how you played with sound in Barista. Yeah, do you want to tell us your story, Shipbactic?
Absolutely. So imagine it's 2016 and you're a senior web developer, and to your horror, you just learned that everything you've created in your career is inaccessible.
Oh, no.
So you learn everything you can to never repeat those mistakes again, become a subject matter expert, learn the specifications, how to use a screen reader, etc. That's my story, and unfortunately, it's a very common one. Shift Backtick combines my degree in computer music with over 15 years of web development experience. Has a very narrow focus with kind of strict constraints for challenge and taste. The projects are, I describe them, I guess, as cozy explorations of ambient music, where the player is kind of the conductor. But they also follow like this holistic, multi-sensory design philosophy that incorporates like really vivid graphics and haptics too. Every project uses pure synthesis for its audio, meaning zero pre-recorded sounds or voice lines or music. They're made for the web browser, following best practices for screen reader compatibility. I guess as I've fallen deeper into this rabbit hole, I've enjoyed refining the approach with the audio gaming community. Super Freak is someone who I have known casually through audiogames.net forum, as well as No Video Jam, and most recently Games for Blind Gamers. We've intersected a lot in the community, and folks like Super Freak have encouraged me to keep pushing the limits of the constraints I place on myself and my projects, kind of without compromising the core philosophy behind it.
That's absolutely brilliant. I wish a lot of gamers had that mentality going in, that multimodal, multi-sensory thing. When you incorporate that well, you just open up the doors to so many more players and so many different kinds of players that would love to enjoy your content. And I think it's really important that we highlight the role that indie developers and people doing game jams are really pushing the boundaries for accessible game development. So maybe I'll turn it over to Super Freak. What kind of gamer are you? Are you a PC or console or something else, some combo?
Well, not a very good one, first of all, but but more importantly, Windows and iPhone, which is a little basic, but hey. I have played some console games, but I never could justify buying a console for myself personally. And that was a while ago, but mostly now I play audio games primarily. So games designed mostly by blind people for blind people, occasionally by outside indie devs. But I do occasionally play mostly indie mainstream games. Not so much the AAA stuff because all I have is a crappy laptop. But I play lots of different kinds of games. But as I've gotten older, I've been kind of going back to the classics, nostalgic, like everybody does.
Yep. Oh yeah, I definitely do that. All the things I sat next to somebody playing as a kid are the ones that I'm desperate to dive in and try and tackle myself these days. And then maybe we'll just kind of jump to some general questions. Where do you think accessibility should be considered when you're developing a game? Should it be at the beginning, in the middle? Can it happen after a game has come out? Or are you kind of hooped at that point? I'd love to hear some different perspectives on that one.
Well, I think
I'll just speak. Oh yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Ideally, like folks with disabilities are included in all the roles throughout the entire game development process life cycle. Accessibility can be added afterward, I guess. A great example of this would be like Diablo 4 and all the cool new features it keeps rolling out. But it really shouldn't be an afterthought like this. Accessibility, in my opinion, is best considered from the ground up during pre-production, where the design decisions and the resource allocations will be more impactful.
Perfect. Do you have anything you wanted to add to that, Noah?
Nothing too different, but I would just say that, of course, of course, I reiterate the earlier you can do it, the better. It's going to be less frustrating, but it's never too late. Also, there are always small things that can be done, and if you do look at the mod community and the things that they do, that's done after. So all hope is not lost if maybe you didn't get things in soon as well. So really, anytime. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies struggle with budgetary constraints and they see accessibility as a nice to have rather than a need to have. So I can see that kind of struggle and that double-edged sword of, well, we really want to, but we can't yet, but maybe we can later when we get some of that revenue coming in. So I think, yeah, if we can include it early, absolutely do that. But anytime in that development life cycle where there is the ability to do even a small bit of accessibility would be appreciated by a lot of people. So maybe I'll talk to Super Freak. What are your favorite features in a game when you're looking for a game to play? Is it audio? Is it co-op? Is it modding? Is it like, what are those features that you look for to say, yeah, that's probably something I want to dive into that might be accessible to me?
Yeah, I guess first of all, I'm like, okay, how accessible is this UI? Can I actually do this, or do I go in knowing that it's always going to be a struggle until someone maybe fixes it?
Mm-hmm.
If I load a game and I don't get any useful feedback,
Mm-hmm.
and then I try to use optimal character recognition on the screen, and I don't really get much, and I can't click on things properly, and I'm like, okay, this one's probably not for me unless there's some kind of hidden keystroke that turns on accessibility, sort of like with RenPy games with visual novels,
Right.
where you can press V to turn on self-voicing. So I will try, but my thing is like, I play games to relax, right? And I love the people that are pioneers in this and will just go into a game that isn't very accessible and just try everything, just bang their head against the wall again and again and do it, because they paved the way for the rest of us.
Absolutely.
And a lot of those people are the ones that reach out to developers and ask for more accessibility because they understand how the game works better. But for me, I'm like, okay, can I use this thing? After that is the other considerations, how are the sounds, do they communicate properly what I need to know as a blind gamer? And then also, do they sound good? But mostly the communication issue. And then just all sorts of different accessibility things, like how accessible is this for other people? People with motor disabilities, hearing disabilities, because I do have a minor hearing impairment, and so I have to consider panning especially. There's lots of different things that I consider, and they all have to sort of work together. But it never has to be perfect. It never has to be perfect. If the game is good enough, I will try.
I think you brought up a really important point there where a lot of people consider, okay, well, there's the blind community and the hard of hearing, lowercase d, capital D, deaf community, and there's the motor disability community. There's a lot of overlap and intersectionality where people have multiple disabilities and need multiple accessibility features. So I think that's really cool that you think about not only how is it going to impact you, but how is it going to impact a broader community, and that good general accessibility is kind of one of those pillars for you to decide if that's something you want to put energy into. And I completely echo your feelings. When I'm playing a game, it's to relax. It shouldn't feel like work. You shouldn't have to put 12 times more effort to play it than a sighted person or somebody without a disability. So that's brilliant. Maybe moving back to our devs for a minute. What was the biggest surprise for you doing this game jam? Was there any perception changes or any things that you discovered? It could be positive or negative, something that was more challenging or less challenging in making accessible and particularly blind accessible games.
For me, it was like I was not familiar at all with the struggle of blind gamers, unsighted gamers, and I was even surprised now when you said about like the penning hearing, and then I'm thinking, oh snap! Like in my game, like there are some pannings, and some people might not hear things on your left, on your right, and I need to add a feature to fix that. And now I put it on my list now of to do. Like I have I what I'm surprised by is that I'm missing a lot of knowledge about accessibility in games, and so yeah. For example, in barista, I learned that being like a blind gamer, unsighted gamer, has like a spectrum of it. Um, and that's why I added like the icons for the game in order to have a bit more experience for those that can enjoy it, and but make it high contrast and simple. Um, yeah, like everything was really new for me. It was really interesting.
And that's exciting for me. I'm delighted that this is kind of your first accessible game, because it's always exciting to me when new people come into the fold and want to develop accessibly. And to me, it's not, oh, have you done it perfectly? It's, have you tried? And that's the most important piece for me, is any effort is appreciated, because oftentimes there isn't that. How about for you, Shiv Batik?
Yeah, and I'd echo that, Tamara. Congrats on Barista. Thank you so much for joining the jam. It's a great product, and I love that you are continuing to update it. Really great job with that. Kind of a different perspective from me, though, is like this Opportunist was the 14th project of mine as Shift Backtick that can be played without seeing the screen. It refines everything that I've learned through the iterative development of these projects since like 2019. Those include Soundstrider, where I learned important lessons like how PDFs can be inaccessible, to Periphery Synthetic, which is an award-nominated project specifically for its accessibility. All of these projects kind of share a common DNA that's accumulated over many years of research and experimentation and feedback from folks like Super Freak. Lakis Opportunist is sort of like a greatest hits compilation, I guess, of all those lessons learned. It puts you in a vehicle in a physics sandbox with an addictive game loop, and it's supported by accessible menus and haptics with a warm, fuzzy soup of psychedelic sights and sounds.
Awesome.
The biggest challenge is always time management, in my opinion, or what a solo developer can reasonably accomplish within the limited time frame of a game jam. We're so fortunate with games for blind gamers that we're given a full month. A lot of mainstream game jams are like 48 hours. It's really hard to it's really hard to like fit accessibility into that. You're never going to solve every access need, and what you do solve won't be perfect. And that's okay. That's punk rock. Like, I can only imagine how a multi-million-dollar studio would have built Lakis Opportunist or Barista differently. Mine would certainly support input remapping, internationalization, fully voiced menus, interactive tutorials, obviously like way more content polish. I guess the truth is this: everyone wants to play good games and share in that culture regardless of their ability.
That's brilliant. I love that mentality. And I mean, just to speak to the big developers, I love indie developers for a few reasons. One, you're not building a game by committee. So you have the ability to change things when you want to. When you hear feedback, it doesn't have to go through multiple levels of consensus before something happens. And it's with the indie developers that I've come across. It's, you run into an issue, you talk to them, you're talking to the person that's going to fix the problem for you. You're not talking to a black hole, and it feels a lot more personable. It feels a lot more personal and engaging, and I think it really challenges those big industry players to say, if a single or a micro team can make something accessible, can do this right, well, why aren't big companies doing that too? And then one follow-up question to you, like, does it get easier now that you've done so many games? And I mean, that's incredible. I'm going to have to check out more of them now. I only saw the one from the
They're
jam.
so good.
But I'm going to have to check out more now. Does it get easier when you iterate and you develop those accessibility skills to kind of take the knowledge from one project and bring it to the next one?
Certainly it does, but I would caution that I certainly feel like I'm on autopilot a lot of the time. Like, I'm in my own zone. I'm doing what I'm creating the art that I want to create, and then accessibility is one of the core pieces of the foundation there. Sometimes a weakness of mine is I'm not always the best with receiving and implementing feedback, especially things that kind of border between, well, is this a problem or is this a matter of taste, I guess.
Okay.
So I think, but you certainly acquire more tools in your tool belt with that, so that, like, ideally over time you have more things to combine, more strategies to follow, etc., to make the most accessible product that you can within the time frame.
Love that. I'm just going to check in briefly with Amy. Do we have any questions coming in from the chat?
Questions from Mermaid Fin. How do controls work for audio-focused games?
Oh, so we have some questions I'm going to toss to the floor. I'm not sure if you heard that. How do controls work for audio-focused games? Who wants to take that?
I would say that the controls aren't that much different in many ways, but also that most blind people, I'd say most, that play audio games especially, don't really use the mouse that much, and not a whole lot of us have controllers. But blindness is a spectrum. There are a lot of low vision people that still do those things. So it kind of depends on which audience you are trying to market your game to, and if you're trying to do it to both, then you can pretty much use most regular control schemes. In terms of telling people where things are, you got to use volume and pitch and muffling if you got HRTF going, and all sorts of different things. But in terms of controls, it's not all that different. It does get a little bit confusing when you talk about mini maps and overlooks, kind of big picture sort of things like that, or complex 2D platforming. But those are kind of honestly case by case basis. Like, we have some ideas as blind gamers generally of what we want, but we don't have that many games of those genres to pull from. So that's in a way, blind gaming is this cool do-it-yourself open frontier and this is why these game jams are so cool, is to see how different people tackle the same problems, because you really can do it the way you want, which is awesome.
How important is it to you to be able to remap or rebind those key commands to use keyboard?
Well, if keyboard isn't a default, then it's pretty much vital, because if I can't use anything except the mouse or the controller, I do have a mouse, but I really don't want to take it out just to use it.
Yeah.
I do have a controller, but half the time it feels like it doesn't work. But yeah, if it does support keyboard, but we just want to change the keys we're using, I think that's just a good motor accessibility feature anyway. So I would never say no to that, regardless. Even if it's just a comfort thing for me, even if I'm cool with the default scheme of controls on the keyboard, I would really like to see one-handed control and stuff, because a fair amount of blind people actually have other disabilities too, like you were saying, and CP is one of those, and that can affect your hands. I know a lot of blind people with hand issues.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah.
No, that's I couldn't agree more. That's brilliant. And then maybe I'm just going to toss a general question out there to everyone. And I'd love to hear everybody kind of chime in if they have something to add, is what do you think the industry as a whole right now doesn't really get or understand about accessibility and in particular blind accessibility? Maybe I'll toss it to Noah because we haven't heard from Noah in a while. If you're okay.
Sure, yeah, and I've got I've got to add another question to that question as well. I think I think people may overestimate how difficult it is, and they may also assume that a certain type of game cannot be made blind accessible because they haven't truly spoken to people who are blind and haven't really gone down that road. Because I'll often get developers reaching out who do want to make their games more accessible, but they often say things like, "Yeah, we want to make it playable by as many people, but we don't think we can make this blind accessible, so we don't really want to explore that." And I think there's just a quick assumption that comes in there. So yeah, that is my sense. I do want to get other people's thoughts, but I did also want to add to that question to the developers here, because I guess you kind of came into the accessibility piece partway through your career, and then I guess what did surprise you? Like, were there things that were less complicated? Were there things that were more complicated? Like, what was your experience with not being necessarily aware of blind accessibility to then making blind accessible games? Because I think that could be really helpful for people out there who may feel like this is daunting, or that there's just certain types of games that cannot be made to be blind accessible.
Yeah, great question.
I think also that people like think that it's too expensive to make the games accessible, or they like the time. They think it's gonna take too much time to really bother, because it's just a small minority of people, so they're not gonna bother making the game accessible for that small group of people. But I think that they can benefit from making games blind accessible because it can reach out to this market of people, and it can benefit developers. But I understand like these really big companies that maybe feel like it's really daunting to make games accessible. But yeah, I think it's more like time and budget. I think that's the problem for it.
Yeah,
And sorry guys if I came in a bit too late.
that's all right. We're happy to have you.
I'm Jonathan, call us Mystic Gamer in Discords, by the way.
Nice to meet you, Jonathan. Thanks for joining. Appreciate you being here. And I'd love to toss
Yeah, I'm
it.
representing.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just saying I'm representing the Unseen Awakening team as blind playtester.
Brilliant. And I'd love to toss it back to the developers for either of those questions. What do we think we're kind of missing from the industry, and what are those pieces that kind of brought you into the accessible space?
For me, it was pretty easy because the whole game was planned and designed to be a accessible game. But when I'm trying to think about making my other games accessible, it's really hard for me to think how I can do that. Like, I'm missing a lot of tools and tricks that I'm sure that if I will go a bit to the rabbit hole and research and ask, I will have the tools. But yeah, like on first like thoughts and sight, I can't. It's really hard for me to think how a game that needs a precision or a speed with things that you see on screen can be translated. Like, I guess they will be translated into sounds, but like at some point it will get overwhelming in my head, at least. So yeah, I'm missing a lot of tools for that.
I think you raise a really important point, and that may be one of the sticking points is, if you aren't already, well versed in accessibility, it's a whole new skill set. It's something that takes a lot of time and effort and energy to put in to get to the point of feeling comfortable and having all of those things just at your fingertips to access. I'm wondering if you have anything to add to that, Shifbatik.
Absolutely. I mean, as we've discussed, disability is not a monolith. It's a broad spectrum of lots of things. And I think for me, in terms of midway through my career, when I learned about accessibility as a web developer, it was because I was trying to upskill other different kind of front end UI UX skills of mine. So I was reading a lot of publications like Smashing Magazine, and around that time in 2016, Microsoft released, I believe, the first version of the Inclusive Design 101 guidebook. And it was such a beautiful document. It was eye-opening to me, and I couldn't believe that I had never considered even just temporary disabilities, like someone has a broken arm or they're holding a baby or they're distracted by noise in the background or whatever. And I think that applying more inclusive, universal design principles, we need to acknowledge that they raise everybody up, not just people with disabilities for those reasons. So I suppose that's maybe what folks are still in the process of getting right now in the industry.
That's brilliant. And I think that leads right into that next question is I know there's probably a lot of aspiring developers out there, and I'll just throw this to the room at large. What resources would you recommend if you're trying to learn about accessibility, whether it's from a gaming perspective or just accessibility and inclusive design in general? What are some of those resources or easy tips and tricks that you can throw people to at least get them kind of started on that path towards accessibility?
I think one thing would be to try and download a screen reader. Like if you're going to implement like a screen reader into your game, like try to download the screen reader yourself and test it out. Or if you're going like play games with like having the monitor turned off or playing with the blindfold or something like that to really understand like how. If you're going to make blind accessible, try to understand like how blind people navigate only by using sound.
Yeah,
It's what I think.
Yeah, no, that's a great perspective. Any other thoughts?
I mean, there's a lot, and I always struggle with where to point people. But the one that I always go to if people are just kind of getting into it is the Microsoft. What is it called here? The Gaming Accessibility Fundamentals. I think there's quite a few resources that they have, but that's a video-based course. It's a few hours. I really like video stuff because I just find it easier to. And I that's one thing that I took quite early on, and I find it just gets you to be aware of a few general things, and then you can dig deeper into the topics that you like. That's the one that I like to start with, but there's so many individual people that have created resources. There's so much stuff out there, but I always do think like Microsoft has created a lot of like great starting place just to get people into it.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and I think there's also some accessibility guidelines online you can find for the web. I think I don't know what they're called, but I remember. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no,
there are. Those are a little. Those can be a little dry. Yeah. Just warning you, but those have the good information.
Yeah, but I know that Shift Backtick uses those in their games, and partly because they're web-based games. But to be honest, WCAG, they are dry, but you can find explainers of them, and when you drill down by section, it is a very nicely structured document, even though it's massive. And just skip the preamble if you value your sanity. But if you do that, there's like. And I completely agree with the Microsoft game accessibility stuff. It's great. But if you want something comprehensive and text-based as well to supplement it with, then I do think WCAG still applies pretty well to most digital things.
Yeah, I think.
Even though it's technically for the web.
Yeah, I agree completely. There's a lot of gems in there, even if it's just down to, okay, what's a good color contrast, or what do we need in terms of spacing and alignment, and how do we create sounds in an accessible way.
And I also think like you have to like have someone like play the game like with the blindfolded, or like try to, like I said, play with the monitor off, or like don't try to close your eyes, play, like try to really understand like the blind spectrum of accessibility, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's never a bad idea to include players with disabilities with that lived experience that have been doing it for a long time, because they might come up with solutions that you wouldn't necessarily consider if this is your first time tackling that kind of a problem.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's true.
So I'm going to toss it back over. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just really quick to add to that, because that's kind of what brought me into this space. Because when I acquired a disability, I initially thought, oh, guess I'm not going to be able to use a computer anymore since I can't use a mouse and type. And then I kind of discovered speech recognition, and the more I used it, I realized there's a lot of really easy wins here that I wish I could just speak to someone, because there's a lot of things that could be improved that wouldn't take a whole lot of effort. And then just extending that to other people, I was like, well, this is probably the case for most disabilities. Like, there's probably really, really great ideas out there that to improve things, and you can gain a lot from just speaking with someone.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Yeah.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to toss it back over to Amy quickly and see if we have any more questions coming in the chat.
Yeah. A comment that just came in from Mermaid Finn was, I found in my own experience with accessibility features, some of them tend to cancel each other out or create problems for my other disabilities.
Ooh, that's a great topic to dive into. So what is our take on when certain accessibility features might hinder a player? Where is that fine line between something being accessible, something having immersion, and disability hierarchy of which one do we go with when two might cause problems or conflict with each other? I know this is one Noah and I have talked about at length, so do you want to start, Noah?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's always the really interesting thing, and the thing that we often have to do is try to come up with a recommendation. I think the easy kind of answer is to have options, because then you can turn things on and off. I mean, I think that sometimes even that is not that simple, but allowing people to customize to their own needs is going to be like the easiest way. That's not going to always be possible. Sometimes we do have to decide, okay, is this something that is blocking someone, and it's just sort of a bit of an annoyance to someone else, because then we want to remove the thing that's preventing someone from playing, even if it might cause some frustration for someone else. That's not an ideal scenario, and it's actually quite rare that you really get into a thing where you have to make a decision like that. But I think it does happen, and we have to sort of we try to prioritize where like the more significant blocker is, and offer an option wherever possible. That situation comes up, and sometimes we also have to understand whether this is a preference or whether this is a barrier, because I think a lot of people just have different preferences for how things go, but it's not really truly like impeding their ability to play the game. And so being able to decide, is this just a preference, or is this actually like blocking you from being able to access?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that can be tricky.
The lesser of two evils.
Yeah, exactly.
I like options too, and it can get complicated, you're right, with so many options. But I think what people need to do more is, if you're going to break these accessibility features into subcategories, and make it so that there's things like vision, hearing, and motor, and you can have submenus, and then definitely put help tags on your toggles, because people don't just know what these things mean all the time. If you have a guided way of showing them for people that aren't used to accessibility options, you can even potentially like guide them through the options and say, okay, what do you need help with? Here are some options that might help, and here's how they work, and have a way to test that in like I've seen this, I think, in Mortal Kombat, where there's a way to test like a scene from the game, essentially, like a little arena where you can quickly test your accessibility options, and it's right there, and you don't have to start a whole new game and everything. It's just a piece of the game right there, so that you don't have to go through all these menus and do all these things. And so I know options are...
That's really cool.
Yeah, I know options are difficult when you have that many, but I think that's a great way of doing it. You got to make it... It's not just for cognitive accessibility for using those options, but just for everyone, and then you may be able to achieve your universal access better.
That's
so you can have some pre-packaged settings that
presets.
Like the Last of Us did, that they have the presets for vision, motor, and etc. That's automatically enables, and you can go there and adjust the settings but they get activated from the start. But I do agree, like some options also a good way, like you can have some accessibility, and you can go there, and but like you said, it can be hard if you have a lot of options, and like some people may have problems navigating. But I like that idea to have like some small tutorial or some small area that you can try out these things. Like you don't have to do like part of the game. Like you own like some small testing room or some small tutorial or an arena that you can try out these things and get accustomed to what these accessibility settings really mean.
And I have another question that wasn't on the list, but maybe this will feel like leading the witness slightly because this is my own experience, and I'm including you in this, Noah. I'd love a response. Is how challenging is it when you're looking at a game, and whether it's indie or whether it's a AAA or whatever it is, to find those information about what accessibility features are available and if they're going to be sufficient to do what you need them to do.
Well, it can be challenging. It depends on like what. I think indie games, I think is a bit easier to find because there's smaller scales. I think those are a bit easier to find settings because you can talk directly to because it's all usually just small team or just one person making the games. You can have a better communication. I think it's harder for like the bigger games to find options. So that's generally my take, that it can be more challenge there to find the proper settings and navigate to it. That's what I think.
Is that a kind of a general consensus with the rest of the folks that play games? It's harder to find accessibility features or information about what accessibility is available on the bigger games than indie titles?
I think it's getting easier, but yeah, I think it can be difficult.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
it needs to be labeled better. I agree. And sometimes it could be spread throughout multiple places, and it's like that's not very great.
Yep, that's been my experience too. So I just wanted to put that out there, that if we are developing games, having some online resources, even external to the game, can be really helpful for people to know if it's going to work for them before they get into it and spend 20, 40, 80, 100 and whatever dollars they want now for certain titles.
I just want to add one thing as well, because sometimes I think what gets challenging for me is some of the things that are helpful for me might not be considered accessibility features. They might just be considered regular features of the game. So having a thing like an invincibility mode or being able to slow down the time, that could be an accessibility feature. It could also not be. I tend to just, if someone tells me, hey, I played this game like with like head controls or face gestures, and then I feel a little more compelled to try it. I think it's challenging because sometimes people's experience is more than just a set of features. For some people, it really is just like, hey, I just need keyboard remapping and then I can do this. But sometimes it really is, you need a certain mix of things, and if they're not all available for a certain type of game, it might not work. And so it's challenging, and I do wish there was a bit more of an opportunity to maybe like try out a game or something like that.
But demo maybe.
Yeah.
I like sites like Can I Play That and Taming Gaming for that reason, because you got people with these, with accessibility proficiency that understand what they need to look for, and potentially even sometimes teams of people with different disabilities reviewing a game and saying, okay, this is where the features I need are. You might find this useful too. And then it does help with those things that may be in the game itself and not considered accessibility features, because someone's actually going through it and saying, this is how it helps.
Yeah, there's a Facebook group I'm part of that's private. That's the admin does reviews for mobile games, and he does tell you like, he does the tips of these features are good for accessibility, and look out for these kind of tips for this particular game. But I would say, like, for me the most important thing is to have a text-to-speech feature, because it's impossible for me to know how to navigate menus if there's no text-to-speech in the game, because otherwise it's like I have no idea where I'm going to have to navigate because I can't read the text at all.
Yeah, no, I struggle with the same challenge, and it usually ends up, well, unless I have somebody sighted playing with me, that game is just right out. Even if the game after the menu is good and I can figure it out with sound cues, if the menu doesn't work, well, you're not playing the game. I'm going to toss it back over to Amy to see if we have any more questions or interesting comments coming through.
Yes, we have a question from PK Game Dev for our developers.
Ooh, developer question.
Do any of you know offhand if the screen reader support from Access Kit works well for most or all screen readers?
Were the devs able to hear that one?
I didn't hear the question.
Could
no.
you repeat it?
I sure can.
Yeah, just come on closer so we can all hear you.
For sure. PK Game
You're a
Dev
bit
would
far
like
away.
to know, do any of you know offhand if the screen reader support from Access Kit would works well for most or all screen readers?
So, does Access Kit work with screen readers?
Actually, I don't know. I can say because I didn't have a lot of time and I was a bit lazy. It was easier for me to just record everything and make a reader by myself instead of trying a new environment to work with. Also, I really like recording, so it was a fun part. And I can't help with that. No, I don't have the answer.
Yeah, I also don't have the answer to that question just due to the nature of all the work that I do being in the web browser. On the Games for Blind Gamers Discord server, we do have quite a few subject matter experts who are working with engines like Godot or Bevy, etc., who could probably give you a really detailed answer about how that works. I really wanted to. Is it okay if I jump back to what we were discussing
For
previously
sure.
about in terms of accessibility tagging and knowing like what features work for you? I think there's a huge responsibility that's kind of being missed right now by the game platforms or storefronts. I think itch.io for the past at least 6 years, as long as I've been using it, they have a pretty good metadata section, which allows developers to check boxes like, is this blind friendly? Does this have high contrast? Does it have remappable controls, interactive tutorial, etc.? And then you can filter the store by those tags to find things that will work for you. Just this week, I received an email from Valve that they're adding an accessibility tagging system to Steam, which will allow you to sort by features like remappable controls, interactive tutorial, etc. I'm a little disappointed in the fact that there are very few boxes that I myself get to check with the audio first kind of design and built-in screen reader support. But it covers a wide range of disability and access needs like speech recognition and other sorts of things as well. So it's very promising to see that move in the right direction. And I think that it's going to get better for everybody with that.
That's amazing. And thank you for sharing that because I had not heard that. And and I hope
I
they'll
didn't know
add
Steam
more.
was-
Yeah, I hope they add more tags to help folks like you guys that are developing those blind first, blind accessible games get the players and get access to people on mainstream hubs. That's brilliant. Are there any other
Yeah.
questions coming in that are interesting, or shall I pop back over
How
to?
about if we're hard out at one, we have
Yeah.
about 9 minutes.
Okay, so I will do a final question. We got to get a little bit unsightly. This is an Unsightly Opinions channel. So, what role, we're going to get real controversial, what role, if any, do you feel that AI or LLMs play in making games accessible? Or do they have no role and will not improve accessibility?
I haven't seen anything with AI role. Like, I mean, there are. I know there's some games that are made like called AI Dungeon where you could make your own games with AI, but I haven't seen that many roles with AI from my
I would prefer it to
perspective.
stay on the user side. I would prefer that it be someone using smart glasses or someone using an AI co-pilot or someone using AI to read their screen properly while they're playing a game or tell them about things. And people are already kind of doing that with Gemini Studio and such. And it kind of works, it kind of doesn't, but it's getting there. I don't know enough about accessibility development to even know if it has a role there. I think maybe it could catch low-hanging fruit, but the time you'd need to take to check its work properly, I mean,
That's
we're
true.
going to have to see how worth it that is. But there is so little standardization in the accessibility development field anyway that it's like, who even knows what people are doing? As long as it works, I don't care. As long as we get results, as long as people aren't losing their jobs over it and the AI is doing a worse job, Then I would prefer it to stay mostly on the user, the gamer's end, though, like what they need as accessibility tools to
Yep.
play a game.
Yes,
Yeah, having that virtual
Yeah.
co-pilot that can describe scenes or help you navigate
Yeah.
a menu or make things that weren't accessible, a game from 20 years ago, a Skyrim and Oblivion, make those accessible to you without a bunch of legwork. I think that, for me personally, is where AI might help, but I am very cognizant of the challenges that AI presents on so many levels in terms of privacy and
Yeah.
security and the
Yeah, there's too much.
hallucinations and the environment, and it's so complicated. Any
Yeah, but as co-pilot it could be good. And I used to be my AI. I used to be my AI a lot. Like I used to find my way to a menu option with Be My AI when I didn't have a sighted person help me. I used that to find my way to the right settings. So that's a good way to use AI for like like a co-pilot or on the user side there. I think to read a screen like that.
Any other thoughts from our devs on AI implementation or?
First of all, I think it can help the developers to just write code. And also, I'm sure that like consulting with LLM about how to make the game more accessible can help, because it holds a lot of information. I personally even used it for some of my voices in the game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think especially in the indie game development, it can help developers with the low budget. For me, I kind of got stuck just before the end of the jam without my voice actor, and then I had to do the voices
Yeah,
myself.
right. Yeah, I do remember
Um,
that.
and also I wanted to add more content, so I used AI to make some voices. I felt it was mixed feelings, but I think for low budget developers, it can be a really useful and helpful way to try new things, to add more content, and yeah, but it's mixed feelings because I appreciate what voice actors and artists in general do. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. They do a good job voice acting.
Yeah, just because we're starting to come to the end of our hour here, are there any thoughts, ideas, things that you'd love to share about accessibility, blind accessibility, game development, the games industry, just thoughts that you haven't been able to express yet that you might want to share, or maybe give a little outro on where people can find your content or where people can connect with you?
Yeah, I'm helping out people with playtesting. Like, since I'm mostly legally blind, I'm always happy to help developers playtest the games with blind accessibility because it's important for me to really play the game, and I'm always happy to lend my help and like make sure that the accessibility features work properly and make sure that the games work. I do like to help out, and that's what I did for the Unseen Awakening. I was invited to that team early on, and it was really fun to like to be part of the game. Like I did a lot of playtesting. I helped them. Like I tested commented on the music, the voice acting, and how the game worked properly, so it was working with my screen reader and so like everything was working correctly. So I think I did a lot of work, and the game got first place in the community voting for the games for blind gamers, and it got a lot of praise. Like people thought it was very good quality and good voice acting, and so it was a lot of fun for me to because it was my first experience to be part of a team to make a playtest. So it was a very, very fun experience for me.
Yeah. So
Yeah, speaking
oh, sorry, go
of
ahead.
the game jam. Oh, sorry. Yeah, speaking of the game jam, that brings me to I have a little crusade that I've been on lately, and I won't take long to talk about it. But I noticed even more during the jam because of all these developers struggling with their engines and going, this is the engine I love Unreal, I love Unity, I love Godot, and then like there's nothing in terms of accessibility frameworks. I think there is a general understanding that's starting to grow finally, just all over the software field, but also gaming, with disabled communities. It's the tool makers. It's their problem. They're the ones with the most money. They need to be making it so that overall accessibility is hard to get wrong. You should have to, it shouldn't be that you have to roll a bespoke solution for every single different game, and you should be flailing out there for bits of frameworks that you shove together and hope they work. Like, it should not be that way, and it is slowly getting better, and we're creating these communities of people that can give you advice on what to use. But I really think it needs to be the CMSs, the engine creators, the software developers that really, their framework should make it so that everything you build ideally is by default accessible, unless you really go out of your way. That is the future that I would really love to see. I love that we have indie developers taking over the slack that they have left there, but we cannot just rely on people's voluntary, kindness, essentially, forever.
Yep. No, I
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that. Our role as indie game developers is just like this one tiny piece of the puzzle, but I believe that our collective experiments with accessible universal design, both our successes and failures, like in this game jam, will eventually like trickle up into the mainstream. Like the accessibility features of The Last of Us or Forza or Diablo were invented and refined by the audio game developers over the past 20 years. And that's the general direction I keep seeing us moving.
Yeah, and I think also it's very important to have like people play tested to get involved like as early as possible in designing the game's accessible, because if you have it like after the game's finished, I don't think like sure they can have accessible, but it won't be like as refined as if you have them be part of the process from the start. So like have them almost early as possible, make the game much better, is my understanding.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, Asaf, Noah?
I mean, just
go ahead.
just adding to the technology piece, I'm excited because I see a lot of improvements year after year. Like, I feel like I always like to see technology improve. Like when we had the iPod, it was like every year it gets so much better, but now the iPhones like barely change. And I think accessibility is kind of in that place where there's so much room for improvement, there's so much need for improvement, and it's just exciting to see innovation and like every year just new things coming out. It's fun to be a part of. So I think despite all the challenges that we face, I think it's exciting to be in an area where like there's a lot of room for improvement and a lot of innovation that can come. So I'm just kind of excited about that part.
Brilliant. Asaf?
So I personally developed my games in Godot, and this community and the engine grows so quickly that I really feel like it's a matter of time where decent tools for development accessibility games will come, and it's just a matter of like keep rising up this issue, the information. Like I can tell for myself that I didn't know it was a thing until I saw this jam, and then I like discovered this beautiful community. So I think it's just a matter of time, and it's getting closer and closer.
Love that. So just one final message here. If you are a blind gamer, if you are a developer who's interested in accessibility, in particular blind accessibility, the Games for Blind Gamers Discord group is linked in the description. I always get it backwards. I've tried it so many times.
Me too.
Anyways, the Games
for Blind Gamers
is linked in the chat, or it's not in the chat. It's in the description, and as well, all of the games that our wonderful developers here did for the Games Jam, the itch page is also linked in the description. So if you want to check out some accessible games, that's there. If you need some advice on development or really specific things for blind accessibility, absolutely check out the Discord server. It goes deep. I've been trolling it for quite a while, and there's so much good stuff in there. And if you need accessibility consulting, whether on gaming or web, check out EasySurf, and that's easysurf.ca. So that's what I will leave us with today. Thank you all so much for joining me. I think it was a really fun chat, and hopefully we'll get to do this again soon.
Mm-hmm.
I'll end this.
Thank you.
Yeah,
so
thanks
much.
for joining us for this
Thanks
stream.
so
Thank you
much,
very
Tamara.
much.
Thank you.